Monday Night Wars podcast.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Monday Night Wars. I am Scott, and with me, as always, is Joseph, who is disheveled because he's been fighting Google on your behalf. Apparently, we've been doing advertising, which I didn't even know we were doing, and they've stopped our advertising probably because they know this is a criminal enterprise, and allegedly.
Yeah.
And so they're not letting us advertise this banger of a podcast anymore. And he's very upset about it.
Well, I'm upset because of the reasons that I stated to you, which is that they tell me I have to be verified. I go and I look and I am verified because they're, understandably they want you to be a real person and not a bot. I get that. So I've gone through their verification process. I am verified. And then they're like, oh, but you're not verified, but you are verified. Like both things are on the same screen. One showing that I'm verified and the other showing that I'm not verified. And they're the person that I tried talking to was like, hey, what if you just spend like $500 a month on us? And it was like, that's not the answer to the problem.
No.
So I'm going to have to fight them this week and be very, very incensed.
And I mean, this podcast
you won't. Yeah, we don't make
this podcast don't make $500 a year, so that would be a bit of a financial commitment. I will say Joseph's very ornery about it, which could result in some very exciting incidences on the pod here. I'm not as upset about it because I didn't even know we were advertising until like 2-3 days ago, but he's very upset about it, and I'm only bringing this up because Google is a big fan of the pod. Mr. Google
himself,
is a big fan of the pod. So, Mr. Google, if you're listening, please fix our advertising. I see Mr. Google watching this on his screen in his car with the feet, like in Wayne's World.
Yeah.
Just kind of see the feet, because Mr. Google drives everywhere because he hates planes.
Absolutely.
Wow, that roadie was strangely informative. Anyways, let's get into the task at hand because we got to talk about wrestling. We got to talk about WCW wrestling from the Hara Arena, Hara, Hara? I don't know. It's an arena in Dayton, Ohio.
There you go.
And we got Nitro for June 2nd, 1997. And we got a lot going on this Nitro. We got a lot going on. Hold on. Harry and David customer care is calling me right now. I got to take this. No, I'm just kidding. I just muted it so you can't hear it on the podcast. They keep calling me because I buy things from my dad from them because he likes it. And now they won't leave me alone. Leave me alone. Mr. Harry and David, big fans of the pod. Stop calling
Absolutely. Me. You know who else is like that? You know who else is like that is Newegg. I bought a gaming PC, one for myself and one for my wife. And now every other day they are peppering me with advertisements for new gaming PCs. And I'm like,
are they calling you?
No, it's just emails. It's just like this is a one and done thing, bro. Like I'm not doing this again for years. Stop, leave me alone. Anyways.
No, I hear you. But what I also hear is that this is a wrestling podcast.
I've heard a rumor. Yeah.
Yeah. So we should probably talk about that. We've gotten so off topic here. This is crazy. Let's get back on topic though, because we start underway here. We got Scott Hall and Six already in the ring. Tell me, Joseph. Tell me.
He's calling them the stuff. This is Hall talking, and he says that the fans are calling and writing, saying they just aren't seeing enough of the NWO, which cannot be true. Cannot be true.
No.
We have seen so much of the NWO.
It might be people really liked it, but we've seen enough.
Yeah, it is wild going back and watching this. Like they are very certainly over and very certainly not doing well. Anyways, he says they are the reason everyone tunes in. Fair. I'd say that's a fair point. He says they punked Kevin Green, exposed Piper, and heard that Flair is still recuperating. technically they didn't do any of those things, although they did attack Flair last week, so there is a little bit of validity in that. Six says Flair is a 13-time champ, though I think at this point it's 14 times. To be fair, I think he's a 14-time champ. You could fact check me on that. I might be wrong. He then offhandedly says, how many times is enough? This is a very subtle way of calling out Flair's politicking, even though I'm sure Flair would say he never politicked. No one got in the top spot without politicking. Anyways, they call Flair a worn-out recording and challenge him to come out. J.J. Dillon runs out instead. J.J. says that Hall made a verbal contract earlier by calling out Flair. And he says that Flair is on his way, and it looks like they will have a match tonight between Flair and Hall. Because Hall is like, you don't tell me what to do. And then JJ says, okay, fine. I won't tell you what to do. How about this, though? If you don't have this match, then I will strip you of those tag team titles that you care about so much. And then JJ walks out. Wait, so now JJ starts being an authority figure? Like, this is great. This is admittedly great. It's just like 2 months too late. So I'm giving it an optimistic B. And I was like, okay, at least finally we're going to get some JJ now. We're by the end of the night and we'll get there. We write back to JJ has no power. Anyways, it's a B. It's really good for what it is. Should have happened 2 months ago. JJ really should have been somebody who's actually in, a thorn in the side of the NWO. And that's just not what happened.
Yes. I completely agree. We're kind of getting what we want, right?
Yeah.
We're getting a credible threat to the NWO. That's what's going to make this interesting.
Correct.
I've brought this up before on the pod, but I'll bring it up again. This is kind of like horror movies, which I'm a big fan of horror movies. But there's different kinds of horror movies. There's more grounded horror movies, and there's kind of the supernatural horror movies. And I think what makes a good horror movie is that there are rules.
Yes.
That the villain can only do. I mean, you can create a universe where they have kind of supernatural powers and all that stuff, but they're confined to that rule set that you've created for them, and they can't kind of go outside it. Freddy Krueger can only attack you in your dreams, all that kind of stuff, right?
Well, not in the second one.
We don't talk about that one. Yeah, we don't talk about that one, though. But that's what makes it interesting, because if they're just this impossible, they can't be killed, they can do anything, it's not interesting. It's not scary, because you're just kind of like, well, I'm going to die, so whatever. It doesn't do it. So if it's just kind of the NWO is going to win no matter what because they lie, cheat, and steal, and there's nothing we can do about it, it's not interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we've seen for months. They lie, cheat, steal, and Eddie's not even Eddie yet.
Yeah.
And I'm tired of it. So I'm hoping that this is the start of a real crisis for the NWO. We've kind of had fits and starts on this issue where they give him this power, and then Eric Bischoff goes, I've got a contract, and then it's over. But let's see. Let's hope. Let's pray.
You talked about rules. I think that's a really interesting one, because it's not just horror films. I think that sci-fi is that way too. Because you can make a really clear argument that like Star Wars isn't actually sci-fi. It's actually a fantasy film just set in space, which I think is fair. But I
think George Lucas would say that, frankly.
Let's call it sci-fi for what it is, right? But Star Wars, Star Trek, all these different things, Battlestar Galactica, whatever, they all have certain sets of rules as far as whatever the science is that defines them. Star Trek obviously is a much more grounded scientific ideals, right? And then Star Wars, its science is far more magical, but it still has rules. And anytime that in either franchise that they break those rules, it immediately pulls me out, and I just go, no, not about this. And it is more common in newer stuff than it is older stuff. But like there's in Star Trek Discovery, nanobites are the worst thing to ever happen to sci-fi, because people don't understand what nanobites are.
They do anything. They do everything.
So they literally in Star Trek Discovery, like they somehow go even further into the future, and then nanobites literally just create like the ships, and it's just like, oh, this is dog stuff. This is so bad. I'm gonna have to because we're trying not to curse anymore, and so I've already cussed twice on this. And the last episode, I made sure to bleep those out, so I'm gonna have to do that too.
You should put a Ric Flair woo. Over it. Get a woo, woo, woo. You know? But I want to go back real quick to Ric Flair being hurt, because I just want to bring this up to you. The NWO has beaten up Ric Flair. He is hurt. He's out of commission. You and I were just watching, as we've told the pod, we're kind of watching ahead. So we're a couple of months ahead of where we are on the podcast.
Mhm.
And we just watched an episode of WCW Nitro. And if you recall, the NWO has beaten up Ric Flair and he's out of commission. It's the same story over and over again.
Yeah.
This is a real slow burn. You could say that in WCW storytelling is going at a glacial pace. Which brings us to our first match, which is Glacier versus the Wonderkin, Alex Wright. And this is about $130 of a match, Joseph. Tell me about it.
Yeah. Glacier wins immediately, and James Vanderbeek comes out with Mortis and Wrath. Glacier fights them for a second before they double team him. Interesting turn of event. Alex Wright wants in. He wants to beat up Glacier too, and they let him do it. And eventually, Mortis accidentally super kicks Wright when Glacier is being held by Wright, and he ducks out of the super kick. And Glacier ends up beating up both Mortis and Wrath. So for weeks, Glacier has gotten the crap kicked out of him by both these people and then single-handedly beats them up. Okay. Didn't enjoy it. I do like Alex Wright, so I'm not going to give it an F, but I do give it a D.
Yeah, I'm glad he didn't join the group. I'm glad that didn't come out of this, because that would have been terrible. I will say, though, the whole time Tony Schiavone's talking, this match seems to just be talking about Ernest the Cat Miller and his arrival, because Tony talked about him the whole match. And I'm like, my God, is Glacier now just getting jobbed out for Ernest the Cat Miller? Because, I mean, to be fair, he wins the match, but then he gets his ass beat, and then he kind of fights him off. So maybe he doesn't eat Ernest Cat Miller. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. All right. Anyways, after that, we go to our next match, because WCW jam packs them. We got Buff Bagwell versus Joe Gomez. We kind of like Joe Gomez, but he ain't gonna beat Buff Bagwell.
No.
3 minutes. Tell me.
Bagwell and Norton have a picture-in-picture and say they aren't just NWO in the US, but also they're taking over Japan. And that's kind of the point of this picture-in-picture. Also true, they do have NWO Japan, and Scott Norton is notably a member of it. This is a new tag team for Buff Bagwell with Scott Norton. I don't think they've named them yet, but they will be very soon, called Vicious and Delicious, which is honestly a great name. Bagwell wins pretty much immediately with the blockbuster. I mean, there's some fighting. They do have a bit of a match, but he wins pretty much immediately. All of this is fine. I thought it was a decent and low mid-card match. I'm giving it a C. It was fine for what it was.
Would you classify this as a debut?
For who? Oh, for Vicious and Delicious? I guess. Yeah, maybe.
Because you know the new rule that I implemented just last week.
What's that?
That we gotta scream real loud, okay? Ah!
What's funny is I had to edit that. I completely forgot about it.
Did you edit that out?
No. I had to edit the episode.
Oh, thank God.
No.
Okay.
I actually did think about finding that
did.
Pee Wee Herman clip and then throwing it in there, but I was like, I by that point my eyes were bloodshot, and I was like, no, just not doing it.
Well, I'm going to keep doing it, so you got plenty of time to find that clip. After that, though, we got Mike Tenay, and we're talking about Ernest the Cat Miller again, because they are selling the hell out of Ernest the Cat Miller. We got photos. He played football in high school. He does karate or whatever, taekwondo. I don't actually know what he does. Is it karate?
Karate, yeah.
Yeah, he's apparently very good. We got some photos, and next week we'll get a video. Boy, howdy. That's this. Do you want to add to that, or
Nah, I didn't
Is
even.
that
I
it?
didn't even grade this. I think this episode actually has like a DDP vignette too that I didn't like grade or talk about because like they're really more just like informational, kind of like, hey, this person kind of stuff.
Well, we'll see if I've got that in my notes. After that, though, we do get a trailer for Roddy Piper. He's got a new movie, Swept Away. That's cool, I guess. I'm gonna see if it's gone to IMDb because I've promised if I can ever find a movie free somewhere that is referenced on one of these shows, I'm gonna watch it. So I'm gonna see if we got that somewhere, and then I'm gonna watch it and report back.
There you
But
go.
until then,
Mhm.
to cleanse your palate, we've got Hugh Morris versus Prince Iakea. Boy, howdy. Tell me about this one.
All right. This one's weird because for some reason I'm finding myself really enjoying this Hugh Morris and Conan rivalry that we got going on.
Whoa!
Yeah.
This is breaking news, ladies and
Yes.
gentlemen.
Yeah. Hey, we've said it since the beginning, right? If we don't like something, we're gonna say we don't like it. If we like something, we're gonna say we like it. And whether we like or dislike an individual, which we genuinely do not like Hugh Morris as an individual,
On a personal
you-
level.
yeah, when you do correct things, gonna give you credit for it. So here we are. Morris, speaking of, walks out and he gets attacked by Conan immediately on the ramp. It's actually Conan's running around with a broom, which is hilarious. The only way it could have been funnier is if it was a chancla. That'd been hilarious too. Hits him with the broom, snaps the broom over his head, and then the athletic trainer comes down. He doesn't want Morris to wrestle as Morris is stumbling everywhere. The kind of illusion is that he's concussed or something. He decides no, he wants to go into the match. Iakea comes down and pretty quickly wins with a roll up. It doesn't take very long. And then Conan is at the stage taunting Hugh Morris. The idea here is actually really sound, and this moves the story forward. Maybe the only intriguing, like low to mid card storyline going on. I don't know if I would classify DDPs as a low card, maybe a mid to upper card for him. But I think that's kind of the only storyline that I'm like, oh yeah, there's actually some meat here. So, anyways, I gave it a B-. I enjoyed it.
And boy, do we love the meat. We love it. We love that meat. I also cannot find this movie. I don't know if it actually ever came out, which would be completely on brand, I feel, for WCW to hype us on something that never happened. Unless they change the name, it might be Dead Tides. There's a movie that came out in 1996 called Dead Tides, which kind of sounds like it could be swept away because it looks like it's about there's an ocean thing here.
Okay.
I'm thinking this might be it. I think I found it. Let's see if I can watch it anywhere. Bro, it's on Plex.
There you go.
I don't know what that even means.
You gotta do it. I don't know what that is either.
But I made a promise. I'm not sure it's even the movie. It's got 4.3 stars, so it's not terrible. I'm going to watch it. But after that, we got Mean Gene, and he's with J.J. Dillon, and they're in the aisle because it's very serious.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you know. I don't know why J.J. Dillon's in the aisle. It's kind of a weird place. Like, I feel like that makes sense when they're talking to like the wrestlers, but it's like J.J. Dillon's a professional. He's a businessman. He should just be on the stage or in the ring. I don't know.
Okay.
Anyways,
This is a weird hill to die on.
this is my opinion.
Yeah.
That I just don't like J.J. Dillon in the aisle. It just seems weird to me for his station as a very important person in the WCW. The aisle seems more like kind of action, like Macho Man just appeared and we're taking it to the aisle to talk to him or something like that. Like it's kind of, I don't know.
Maybe
Everyone agrees.
Hold on. Maybe
Tell me.
Maybe because think about it. Whenever we see Bischoff, he's always on the stage or in the ring. So maybe this is just a very subtle metaphor to let you know that J.J. Dillon is not actually a true man of power.
I hope not, because I would like him to have some power.
Let's be honest, it's not that thing because there's no way they had that foresight to actually be like, we should have
Yeah.
some
It's not clever.
imagery.
It's
here.
not clever.
No.
But JJ does tell us that Ric Flair, despite being banged up, is in the building.
Mm-hmm.
And he also tells us that the Steiner Brothers are the number one contenders for the tag team belts. And the Harlem Heat, they get kind of mad about that.
Mm-hmm.
They think they should be the top contenders. And I think they're right. What do you think? Tell me about this. What do you think? Do you think they're right to be upset? I think didn't they kind of get robbed? Aren't they supposed to be the number one contenders?
I think they got a good argument for it, for sure. Well, first of all, there's number one contenders, but there's been no number one contenders match, which is strange to me, right? Also, the people the Steiners have beaten recently have been not tag teams. Also strange to me. So Sherry says that JJ Dillon favors his peons instead of the 7-time tag champs in Harlem Heat. And she says that action causes reaction. And I actually thought about this and I went, my God, they've been tag team champs 7 times and they barely get screen time. That's wild.
Yeah.
Booker says they are the best tag team. You can make an argument for the Steiners as well, but I think they're in the discussion. This could have been better, but I honestly thought they were going to make this a race thing the way this was starting. And I was like, oh no, not WCW 2. I gave it a C-.
You thought they were going to pull the old race card, as Vince would say?
Yeah, I thought we were going to have
not on our
Nation WCW.
Not on our W. Yeah, they saw that and said, that's good. Let's do it. No, they did not, but they did do a special vignette, as you said, to Diamond Dallas Page. It happens right now. That's really all it is it's building up his match with Randy Savage. It's going to be hot. Great American Bash coming up. It's going to be wild. After that, though, speaking of the Steiner Brothers wrestling tag teams that aren't really tag teams, we got one of those matches up next because we got Chono and the Great Muta for some reason against the Steiner Brothers.
Yeah.
Tell me about this almost 9-minute match.
Yeah, it's actually a really fun match between both teams. It looks like the Steiners may win when Rick Steiner, I almost said Rick Steiner. Rick Steiner gets hit by a chair from an interfering Harlem Heat. Again, actions cause reactions. Muta locks in a leg lock and gets a 3 count for the win, which is odd. Weird way to do that instead of like a tap out or something, but okay. JJ technically said that if the Steiners won, it would solidify their number one contendership. So he's back out to talk to the Harlem Heat. JJ says it's clear there have been extenuating circumstances, and if the Harlem Heat have a match tonight, that they should focus on that, inferring that they may get number one contendership from their match. Stevie Ray says, we ain't got a match tonight. What we have is a lesson, and a very cool line from Stevie Ray. He doesn't get a lot of great lines on his side. I'm giving this a B. It's a lot of fun, all things considered. I like what's going on, and it looks like it's going to be a blow off between 2 tag teams that we love. So I'm cool with it.
And we further the story that JJ Dillon is laying down the law. He said, we think that there might have been some questionable actions in that tag team match that we all clearly saw on video, but they're going to review it. And God bless them for doing that. God bless them for reviewing that thing that we all just saw. Hour number 2. We got Ric Flair in the house with Mean Gene Joseph. Tell me about the jet flying, limousine riding, ring wearing son of a gun. Tell me about it.
Gene asked about Scott Hall. Flair says, why will they not leave well enough alone? He says Hall is right. Flair doesn't know if he can beat him. But doesn't Hall know by now that Flair wants to find out? Flair says it's a mistake without Nash here to be challenging him and it just being Hall and 6. He says he will stomp a pothole in his toothpick chewing white honky
butt.
Speaking of white honky
butt,
it's been a minute since we've seen Flair's. I give this a B. It's actually quite good.
It was Rick. I think you brought this up several pods ago that Ric Flair, when he feels like he's in something that matters, he gives it his all, and when he doesn't, he does not. And I feel like Rick feels like he's got something going on here.
Yeah, I agree.
Because he referred to Scott Hall as having a honky bootay.
Mm-hmm.
And I laughed out loud because Ric Flair, one of the whitest guys I've ever seen, and I've seen his honky bootay, as you rightfully noted, on several occasions. So it made me laugh. After that, though, we got a U.S. heavyweight championship match versus Dino Malenko and our favorite, Mr. NWO, Michael Wall Street. Tell me about this 6.5 minute match.
Nick Patrick is again getting in Wall Street's face, but why isn't this against the NWO, not Mr. not NWO, but also not WCW in Mike Wall Street? Yeah, by the way, I'm still confused. I have no idea what his gimmick is. It's definitely not the WCW, but also he's not part of NWO. Who knows? Whatever. I've complained about it enough. Jerry tries to help out Wall Street, but Patrick will not let it happen. Then Patrick gets in the way of the ropes when Wall Street is stuck in the cloverleaf. Obviously, cloverleaf's blocked in. Malenko gets the win. Gene interviews Jarrett, who says he wants a rematch since at Slamboree his match was interfered in, which I think makes sense. He calls Malenko an uncharismatic block of ice. He kind of right, though. Malenko says sure. Then Mongo runs out and gets mad that Jarrett didn't tell him he was coming to interfere in this match. What? Jarrett says he is only looking out for number one now. He tells Deborah to come with him. Then Mongo says no, then calls out Kevin Green instead randomly, saying he resurrected Green's career. Just so we're clear here, Kevin Green has 65 more sacks in his career than Mongo does.
Oh.
And in only 15 more games, which is about a season.
Rest in peace, Maya.
Yeah. That being said, this is a convoluted mess. I did not like it. I gave it a D.
Yes. It's a weird one. I don't understand. Again, I don't understand this Mongo Jeff Jarrett thing, and I don't think they understand it either because now they're really trying real hard to manufacture reasons to have them upset. I feel like it's kind of right there with Deborah. Just make it about Deborah, which I'm not necessarily a fan of, but it's easy. Because, it's there.
Yeah.
Just make it about that.
Yeah. And then if we know one thing about WCW, getting someone's wife booked into the storyline in a love triangle is just chef's kiss. We all love it.
Booking your divorce is a WCW staple. So why not just do it? Just do it. After that, we got Harlem Heat versus Cyclope and the devil child himself, Damien, for 3 minutes. I don't think this goes very well from our friends from south of the border, does it, Joseph?
Well, you'd be surprised. Heat are decimating their opponents when the Steiners return the favor from earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And then Damien hits one of the worst splashes I have ever seen for the win, and I gave this an F. It's mostly I gave it an F because the match itself is so bad. Damien is a weird one. Outside of WCW, I've never heard of him. Cyclope is very similar for me, where I've never heard of him outside of WCW, but I think he does a competent job in his matches. And there are a few random luchadors that are like that, where it's they were part of that, connection through Conan, and he was able to bring them over and all that stuff. So that's fine. But I've never heard of Damien, but also on top of that, he's very, very, from my point of view, from what little I've seen, not good in the ring. And so I'm super confused as to what he's doing here. Anyways, storyline does advance. This will lead to something better, so I'm okay with that, but I gave this an F anyways.
Yeah, Cyclope is at least a WCW staple.
Yes.
We see him. He wrestles. He's a regular. Yeah, I mean, we kind of knew the Steiner brothers were going to interfere. I mean, tit for tat, right?
Yeah.
So it happened. But more importantly, what happens after is we get Lee Marshall.
Absolutely.
That's the only thing that matters with the 1-800-COLLECT road report. He is in Boston, Beantown. It's called Beantown, right? That's a nickname for Boston.
That is, yes, that is a nickname.
Okay. I thought maybe this would just start a thing where I just make up nicknames for cities. But I was pretty sure it was Beantown. Anyways, Beantown, they're having a Nitro party. And do we have any weasel sightings, Joseph?
I think we might. Lee says, we all know that Boston has so many sports legends, it's hard to keep track. He also mentions that many WCW stars are friends with Boston sports legends, saying that Sting once sent a pair of shoes to Larry Bird, who then scored 40 points in those shoes. Lex Luger once sent a special pair of skates to Bobby Orr, who had a hat trick that night. And he gets Boston fans would like to know that Bobby the Brain Heenan once set a customized Wonder Weasel's first baseman mitt to Bill Buckner. And that day he made only one error in what is one of the deepest, best jokes of Bobby's entire run, or of Lee's entire run. Heenan then says that he hopes that Lee chokes on some chowder. Great. And then he also says that Bill Buckner was the best player the Red Sox ever had. And even in 1997, I can rattle off like 10 better players. Carl Yastrzemski, Roger Clemens, Wade Boggs, Cy Young, Jim Rice, Babe Ruth, Lefty Grove, Carlton Fisk, Tris Speaker, and Teddy
Fricking
Ball Game. Anyways, it gets an A+. It's fantastic. I love it. Also, real quickly, if you don't know the story of Bill Buckner, if you're not aware of this, I think you kind of need to know it to understand the joke. Bill Buckner, longtime first baseman, should be most notably for his time on the Dodgers and the Cubs. Those were his big teams. He spent 3 years, I think, in Boston. The Red Sox, if you aren't aware, they traded a no-name player in 1919, I think it was, Babe Ruth, just some random guy, to the New York Yankees for a bag of chips, which sometimes happens. And from that point on, they did not win a World Series. And it became called the Curse of the Bambino. Bambino was one of Babe Ruth's many nicknames. If you've ever watched Sandlot, you'll hear a number of them. Anyways, so that was a huge thing. The Red Sox are in, I believe, the World Series against the Mets, I think it was. And it's like game 6, and they are in the lead, and it's like bottom of the 9th or bottom of the 8th, one of those two. It's like a deciding inning. It's very like they have the chance to win the World Series. The Bill Buckner was the first baseman during this era for them in his 3 years there. And he ends up, a routine ground ball comes to him and he misses it. It goes right under his legs and keeps going. They actually did a really interesting 30 for 30 on ESPN about this whole storyline. He swears up and down, or swore up and down, because he is unfortunately deceased now. But he swore up and down that his glove shifted. And because back then you didn't have the technologies to really zoom in and get clarity in those things, but by now you do, if you zoom in, you will see his glove it starts here, and the momentum, the inertia from the rest of his body makes the glove go like this, even though his hand never moves. But the bottom of the glove keeps going and literally wraps around the baseball, and the baseball, even though he's in perfect position, the baseball goes right past him. Huge moment, and people hated him, unfortunately, and they were quite rude to him, the city of Boston. Not notoriously a good town for fans, notoriously some of the worst fans in baseball. And they were very, very evil towards him. So that is the story of Bill Buckner and blowing the World Series. And yeah, just how it works, man.
Yeah. And that's the story of Bill Buckner, who was a pretty good player and is only really remembered for that.
Yes.
And yeah, not well taken in the city of Beantown.
You know, the umpire, the third base umpire, had a rule apparently when he would umpire World Series games, that he would ask the winning team's third baseman for their glove, and he would collect them. And he asked him right before that happened, and the third baseman said, "The game's not over. We haven't won anything. And if you know your baseball, you do not screw with the baseball gods. Whether you believe in religion or not, the baseball gods exist, and they will humble you." And immediately right after, that happened.
It ain't over till it's over.
Mm-hmm.
And WCW Nitro ain't over until it's over, because we got like 2 more matches. And this match is Chris Benoit versus the Barbarian for almost 4 minutes. And I like these guys together. I think this should be a good match. Should it not, Joseph?
The storyline is Benoit, if he wins, he can face Sullivan again, which why? Benoit does that thing where he does his diving headbutt, and it's glorious and beautiful and incredibly vicious, not delicious, and disgusting and horrible.
Yeah.
I actually took a screenshot of it, and in the screenshot, you can see Benoit's head just whipping back, and it's not good. Anyways, he then locks in the crippler crossface for the win. Jimmy Hart says things will get tougher for Benoit from here. He says there is a step number 2, which no one knew there was going to be a step number 2. We believed it was just supposed to be this. Step number 2 is a death match at Great American Bash with Ming, which is literally the match that we just had at the last pay-per-view. Okay? And he says there is a step number 3. Match is fine, but why are we going back to the Sullivan stuff? And why are we getting an identical match at the next pay-per-view? This is baffling booking. Presumably, Kevin Sullivan is no longer booking anything. So why is this happening? I don't know. Gave this a D.
They must have put him on leave or something. Because just finish this. Just be done with it. Well, I mean, in theory, I feel like we finished it 113 times.
Yeah.
But finish it.
For real.
Just be done with it. Just finish it on Nitro. It's good. We don't need that Great American Bash. Just have them go at it tonight. Done.
Right.
Over. The end. And now it's time for our main event. Speaking of the end, we got the last one here. We got Ric Flair versus Scott Hall. And I'm sure nothing nefarious will happen during a match involving the NWO and Ric Flair. Tell me about this almost 8-minute match.
Flair has to fight Hall, but also Six, who interferes whenever he can.
Oh.
Randy Anderson. I am all over the place today. Randy Anderson, I'll slow it down, somehow just never calls a DQ until finally Hall uses the belts on Flair. And I mean, they relentlessly are attacking Flair, and Randy Anderson sees every single one of them. And it isn't until the belts come into play that they get a DQ. It could be an interesting storyline if like Flair told him, "Hey, I want them, so don't do it." And if you made like, a moment where we saw that, but none of that happens. So it's like, whatever. Okay. Both men attack Flair post-match. Mongo then comes in and chases them off after a good long while. By the way, there are 2 other members of the Horsemen just nowhere. Jarrett like leisurely walks out, which isn't a story thing. It's just a whiff. Like, what are we doing? This had so much potential. The build up to it was like superb. And then we got this and it just fell flat for me. I gave it a D.
Yeah. But Flair wins. Sort of. In a roundabout way. He gets the DQ. He wins. This is, you mentioned the 4 Horsemen thing. This is something that we were talking about on a recent watch on our own about this. You've got a stable of guys. One of your guys is getting the crap kicked out of him. Where are your guys? And I wish they would do something to explain why they're not here. Just something. It doesn't need to be much. It could just be, a chair pressed up against the, locker room, a door that just says horseman, and there's a chair wedged up and you see the door kind of moving or something. That's all it has to be.
Yeah.
But we need something. And like you said, I think the Jarrett thing could have been an angle, but I don't think they really think it's an angle. It could have been that Jarrett's kind of become disillusioned with the Horseman because of his fighting with Mongo and all that, and he doesn't really care. He's kind of like, I'm coming out because you're paying me, kind of thing, right? Like I'm just doing this I'm just doing this so I get my paycheck, kind of thing. But I don't think that's actually what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing. After that, though, we got Mean Gene being led by the collar by the Macho Man Randy Savage. Tell me, Joseph, finish this out for us.
This is a long one. We just randomly see Mach grabbing him, like you said. And at first what you hear is, "You and me in the ring, brother. I got something to say to you and everybody and DDP and everybody concerned," which I love that. Like, I don't know why he said it like that. They walk to the ring, and Mach is screaming at Gene on the way to the ring, shouting things like, "You look at me, go to the ring," etc. He threatens to drop Okerlund. They finally get into the ring, and Gene asks about being dragged up. He tells Mach he has misjudged many people and people of late, like DDP. "And you said what you wanted to say right there, because I got something that I want to say about that. Because we're going to turn a page right now. The greatest wrestler, past, present, and future, that has lived or has ever lived. It's the madness, the Macho Man Randy Savage. Let's get that straight." And then Gene says Savage has been reading too many of his own clippings, which is a great way of saying you're high on your own supply. I love that. He says someone needs to bring him down to earth. Savage grabs Gene's tie and says, who's going to bring me down? Would you like to challenge me right now? Give me a little warm-up before I crush Diamond Dallas Page at the Great American Bash?" And then J.J. Dillon sprints down to the ring. And we have had a whole night of J.J. Dillon telling people what for. And we're like, okay, here we go. This is going to solidify it. You have talked to people the whole night, but now you're talking to a true main event player in Macho Man. So here we go, right? Gene says he's had enough of this and he leaves. Dillon says that he has something to say. He doesn't want to see Mach or anyone ever put their hands on a WCW announcer ever again. He tells Mach that he owes Gene an apology, and Mach replies, "Oh, I owe him an apology." And I laughed so hard when he said that. And then Dillon says Mach is being unprofessional, and Mach says, "Oh, really? Would you like to straighten me out right now?" And then JJ says there was a time when Mach had his respect, and Mach says, "Oh, that means a lot to me." And then he goes, "Did I burst your little bubble about the Macho Man Randy Savage? For that, I'm very, very sorry." And I laughed so hard when he said that. JJ says, yes, he expected better. There was a time when Mach would have been a man and addressed DDP head on. Someone's revving like crazy out there. You might hear that. You might not. Mach says, "He's not in the building right now. I'm here. What's your point?" And then Dillon says that his point is that this isn't the same Macho Man. He calls him out for hiding behind Liz. And then Mach kind of smiles and he turns and he clocks J.J. Dillon and starts beating him. Bischoff runs down and tries to pull Mach off of him. He tries to calm down Mach. Mach finally cools off, and then he goes after JJ again. Bischoff grabs a mic and says, "You started this, JJ. You started this." This is wild to me because this is a good idea, but JJ on his very first night in this role was being told by Bischoff in storyline, "You have no power here."
Mm-hmm.
Like, dude, you devalued him immediately. And then 2 months later, you decided to try and start this story. And what's worse is you start the story and literally the only night where JJ actually acts as an authority, you immediately take it away from him again. This is wild. If this was 2 months of JJ getting even for WCW and finally the NWO snaps, and they kind of beat him up and all this stuff, sure, I'd have been completely fine with all this. But it's not. It's just like, oh, you finally start showing resistance and it's gone. Like you said, rules, man, rules. I gave it a C.
I don't care for it.
Yeah.
But what I do care for is WWF Raw at the Huntington Civic Center in Huntington, West Virginia. Blue Ridge Mountains, Shenandoah River, which are actually in West Virginia. I don't know if anybody knows this, but the Country Road song is not actually about the state of West Virginia.
Yes,
it's
that's
about
correct.
the western portion of Virginia.
Yes.
But no one cares. So anyways,
moving
on.
It's actually a huge problem between Virginia and West Virginia, because West Virginia wants to claim it as theirs because it technically just says West Virginia. And Virginia goes, that's not even a landmark in your state.
Those things are not in the state.
Yeah.
It's West Virginia's state motto, though, or at least it's on when you enter West Virginia. I have a friend who's from West Virginia, and I went to his wedding, and my buddy and I carpooled from DC. And when you enter, there's a big billboard that says, "Welcome to West Virginia, almost heaven." So they're all in. They are all in. West Virginia, also beautiful. But that's besides the point, because we got Vince in the ring because he wants to talk to The Undertaker. And The Undertaker comes out, and it take like 47 minutes for him to finish his walk down to the ring. It is so long that everybody is switching over to Nitro to see Glacier and Alex Wright.
That's how switching long. Over right back. Oh, that's what I got.
Yeah, because the first match is actually pretty good. But first of all, let's talk about Undertaker. He's rejoined Paul Bearer because he doesn't want the secret getting out. Tell me, Joseph.
Taker says this is blackmail, and he did it to protect the ones he loves and not himself. Although I don't think Michelle McCool cares. Someone's going to go, him and Michelle McCool weren't married. I know they weren't. It's a joke. Move on. Anyways, he says he won't go to hell because he lives in it now, which is a very cool line. Very cool line for him. Because the people he cares for would be hurt, he has to take on Bearer as his manager. He tells Paul Bearer that when he sits in hell, he will make a deal with Satan himself to ensure he burns for eternity. Taker all over some great lines tonight. Paul Bearer comes down to a chorus of boos. He tells Taker, "You talk too much. Maybe I should do a little bit of talking too." And then he chastises Taker for sneaking behind his back for this promo. He calls Taker his instrument of destruction. He tells him that his plan is for him to destroy everyone on the roster. And when they do, he, being Bearer, will be the ruler of the world. And then Sid's music hits in what is one of the finest first examples of a perfect transition to a wrestler's music. Like, that line is very clearly Sid's. The music hits right after he hits it, and Sid walks out. It is perfect. I don't think we've seen this from either company up to this point.
No. Back from injury, too. This is
yes.
Sid has not been around, so this is unexpected.
Yeah. He says, "First of all, fat man, you don't rule nothing. I rule the world." Again, makes sense. It is Sid's character. He says he ruled the WWF until Taker beat him, and that Taker wore the belt with pride and honor. And so that's why he never asked for a rematch, because he felt the belt was on the right person. But now he's lost respect for Taker, and that he wants his rematch, and he wants it tonight. Okay, so real talk, do you think that Sid gains or loses respect when he finds out that Taker kayfabe killed his own parents and horrifically burned his brother?
I think that adds points.
Taker tells him, "You may mistake this for weakness, but I dropped you on your head once and I will do it again. I accept." Scott's reacting to the revving going on outside.
I think that gonna be on the I think that gonna be on the pod.
It might be this
It's
time.
pretty loud, yeah.
Then the nation's music hits, and Farouk says, you can argue about who rules the world, but next week, he will rule the world and be champ. Honestly, everyone here, I think, did really well. I'm giving this a B+. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Yeah. And we got Farouk. He says Undertaker a coward. And that leads into a match because we got a friggin' match. We got a Farouk match. Farouk comes out because he's got a match versus Ahmed Johnson, which I think we've seen this match 20 times. But.
Well, hold on. Don't you mean, but?
Well, that's a different program.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, go down. But I will say that Farouk and Ahmed Johnson, that's a pretty good match on the card, though, even though we've seen it over and over and over again, and we know how it's going to end because the nation's going to get involved because that's how this works. But tell me about it, Joseph. 3 minutes.
I will say, though, we got some pretty good storytelling in this one.
Mm-hmm.
Ahmed whips Farouk, like straight up whips him. The ref sends the nation away, but then they come back because of rules, apparently. Taker attacks the nation outside, including Farouk, and again, rules. Tim White sees all this and just doesn't call a disqualification. Ahmed gets thrown into the steel steps by accident when Taker throws Farouk at him. And then Farouk rolls Ahmed into the ring real quick, pins him, gets the quick win, and Taker goes for Farouk again, who rolls out of the ring, and Ahmed is pissed at Taker. And Taker and him start arguing, and then Taker says, I'm done with this, and he just choke slams him. This is really oddly paced and kind of awkward. However, this is going to have a storyline that happens over the next 3 weeks, I think. It's definitely going to play into King of the Ring next week, and I believe the following week. So they're actually setting up something here, so I'm giving this an optimistic C.
Yeah, there's a story. I'm okay. I'm willing to give this the benefit of a doubt because we've got a story. And speaking of stories, we continue the best story going on right now. Stone Cold Steve Austin and Bret Hart. We do a recap to last week where Stone Cold beat Bret's ass and apparently re-injured Bret's knee. So he can't be in the match at King of the Ring. This brings out the Hart Foundation, and we also get Shawn and Steve on the split screen. This is going to be fantastic, Joseph. Tell me about this. Ooh.
Yeah, so as you pointed out, they are in a split screen situation. They're both on a Titantron, but they don't want to be in the same room as each other, so they're in two separate rooms, hence the split screen. They're both at the stadium. But again, that's not a complaint. That works with what the storyline has been so far for them. Vin Man asks if Hart will be able to compete at King of the Ring with his injury re-aggravation. Hart brings up guys from Texas with their bad legs and excuses. Don't know who he's talking about. Hart says he has an excuse, and it's Stone Cold jumping him. He mentions the ways Austin has attacked him, and Austin actually chuckles, which I laughed really hard about. Bret says because of this, HBK won't get his big dream match, which I think was at WrestleMania 12, but whatever. HBK says you can always count on a Canadian smoking everyone in the US, which I admit wasn't Sean's best line. I don't actually know what it was pertaining to. Okay. HBK says Bret only makes excuses and that he could almost live with Stone Cold leaving him high and dry last week, except now Stone Cold has robbed him of his match. Storyline-wise, this makes sense. Stone Cold says, well, that's your problem, because you sit there and say the United States and Bret Hart, well, I don't give a rat's ass about any place. I tried to take Bret Hart out for good. Maybe I didn't get the job done. And then Shawn says, not only did you not do that, you kept me from ensuring he can no longer wrestle in the United States. Now Bret has all of the options, and then the two stars start arguing. And Austin says, why don't you come over and find me? So Shawn does. He just leaves, and he goes, and they start to argue in the same room finally. Vin Man asks Bret his reaction, and he whispers in Pillman's ear. Pillman says they're enjoying this lover's quarrel. And though he wants to beat up Austin at King of the Ring, out of the goodness of his heart, he is willing to let the boy toy take his place at King of the Ring so they can work out their differences, provided he gets his shot in short order. Austin says, you got yourself a deal. After I beat Shawn's ass at King of the Ring, I'll beat your crippled, raspy horse's on Monday night.
Good Lord.
Fantastic work from Austin. It's really, really good.
Lord.
So real quick, I'm going to give this an A+, but there is some backstage stuff we have to talk about that is going to be a huge thing going into the next week. In his book, My Real Life in the Cartoon World Wrestling, Bret Hart says, throughout that week, I brooded about what to do. He's been referencing the fact of the whole Shawn, Sunny Days comment and their whole, all that stuff. I wondered about beating the hell out of Shawn for real at the pay-per-view. But that could be costly to the company if he got badly hurt. Bret Hart, always the company man. And I also had to be careful of my knee. I decided to tell Vince that I had to pull out of the pay-per-view because my knee wasn't ready. Vince had a plan. Stone Cold would finally catch me alone, flatten me, and bash the hell out of my knee, taking me out of the pay-per-view storyline and what would have been a clean win over Shawn. Maybe it would have. I don't know. At the Raw in Huntington, West Virginia, this one on June 2nd, I had an in-depth talk with Vince. He told me that the company was in financial peril and that he was only just hanging on. The next 6 months would either make him or break him. He said Ted Turner was hell-bent on putting him out of business, and he told me that he might have no other choice but to restructure my contract. Of course, I'd still get every dime he owed me, but I'd get it on the back end years down the road. He added that he appreciated how hard I was working for him, and he told me not to worry about anything. I sure didn't want to receive the money owing to me now. Oh, I'm sorry. I sure didn't want to receive. Jesus, let me restart that line. I sure didn't want to receive the money owing to me now at the back end of my contract, so I did call my lawyer to see what my options were if Vince tried to do that kind of a move. But when it came right down to it, I didn't believe that he ever would. So that is this week, Bret Hart's state of mind. In Shawn's book, Heartbreak and Triumph, he talks on page 243. This is important because I didn't actually quote this one, but you do need to know about this, that he believed it was Bret reporting things to the dirt sheets. He never specifies Dave Meltzer, but Bret Hart in his book loves to reference Dave Meltzer's reportings, which are very interesting. We have seen in recent years Meltzer reporting many suspect things about people who his friends don't like. So this isn't necessarily out of the realm of possibility. I'm not saying it's true. Take with it the information as you will. Now, anyways, on the same page, Shawn says during that time you could feel the tension in the dressing room. Occasionally, we would be in there together, but we would never talk, meaning him and Bret. I wasn't very good at handling it, and being the lightning rod that I was, I openly mocked the mood. Feel the tension in here? I would yell. You can cut the tension with the knife. Both of these accounts are important, not for this week, but for next week. HBK is also pretty plastered during this week. You can tell how he slurs certain words, the way he's talking. By his own admission, his drug use is becoming a problem at this point. He will certainly get in. We will certainly get into this over the next few weeks and months. One interesting nugget that I found is that Shawn tells us that the previous September, quote, away from the ring, I traveled with Hunter. He was good to talk to, but he didn't do anything. He didn't party. I also traveled with Jose and a young lady for a while, but that wasn't the same as being with the guys, meaning Six, Hall, Nash. At a show in Tampa, I returned a call from Vince. He didn't want me riding with Hunter anymore. He's a heel and you're a babyface, Vince said. The guys don't like you riding together. You have too much heat. This will all come to play in the next few weeks. Shawn Michaels, as a person at this point, feels alone and miserable. He watches Nitro weekly, seeing his best friends goofing off and having a grand time. On the same day every week, he gets buried by a man just as unprofessional as him at this time and gets paid twice, and who gets paid twice as much as him, which he is clearly upset about. He mentions it a number of times in the book that he does not like that Bret Hart was getting paid more than him, which could be just a petty, stupid thing. Like I get it, and I'm also like, that's not your deal, so get over it. It is what it is. On top of all of this, the one person he feels he has in this company, you tell him you can no longer be around. Shawn is about to erupt, and it's going to happen very, very soon. And by very soon, I mean next week. So tune in to find out about that.
What a segue. Owen Hart, Bob Holly for the Intercontinental Championship. There's a bit of a story here, right? Because they explained to us that Bob Holly got an upset over Owen a couple of weeks ago, and now he gets a title shot. And this is a pretty good match. Bob Holly's a good wrestler. I think this guy might become something.
Yeah, I agree. Holly, like you said, gets the title match for the reasons he does. And you mentioned it's kind of a storyline. It's one of those storylines where it's like, there's not going to be like a major resolution to it. Like the resolution is tonight. And I'm okay with that. Sometimes you just need like these quick little like, hey, this guy earned that shot. So that way it gives importance to the idea of earning things. Anyways, Owen wins easily with a sharpshooter. Like you said, the match is fun, but Owen wins. We knew he was going to win. There was no way he was going to drop the title. It's a B. It's a fun match, but it's a B.
Well, I actually liked the finish because it is Owen does win with the sharpshooter, but it's off of Bob Holly goes for a Frankensteiner that Owen Hart turns into a power bomb and then gets him in the sharpshooter. And I thought it was a really good kind of fluid thing they did.
Yeah.
They're both really good at it. I like that. I was like, ooh, that's a good one.
Right.
So overall, pretty straightforward match, but a good one. After that, though, I should have mentioned after all you were talking about the fighting between Shawn and Bret, before the match, we catch a glimpse of Shawn in the back. He's arguing with some people back there. And after that, so we have that before the match, and then after the match, Vince talks to Shawn, who's backstage, if he'll accept this match with Stone Cold, because it sounds like he's kind of pissed about it. And he says, yeah, he will. And Pillman can get whatever's left next week. I mean, that's pretty much it. But do you want to add more?
I mean, it's okay. I gave it a C. It's not Shawn's best. And it's mostly because you can tell by this point, whatever substances are in him, like they have their hold. And you can tell because Shawn does this thing where his bottom lip droops when he's like really plastered. And it's a very specific thing. And when you see Shawn clean in a few years, you'll definitely see the difference between the way that they talk. And you're like, oh man, he is absolutely hammered. And for me, growing up with clean Shawn, like going back and watching this, you just kind of go, ugh, But anyways, let's see.
Yeah. He's noticeably and it gets worse, right? Like he's slurring, as you said. He kind of just looks, he gets real sweaty. And he just kind of has this look on his face. And yeah, he's
one of the things he does is you can almost see
he's enjoying himself.
You can almost see him remembering the line, like as he gets to it, like what he was going to say, because he'll just shout it out. And it's just it's almost like he was like, where was it? Oh, there it is. And then he just throws it. It's really interesting.
Yeah, it's not going real well for Shawn right now. After that, we get some clips from Mick Foley's previous interviews. We're going to get more of that in the next hour. But before we do, we got a Goldust Hunter Hearst Helmsley match. And this one goes 348. Tell me, Joseph.
This is a European title #1 contender match, which they let us know right before the match starts, which I think is really cool because we really haven't seen the European Championship defended recently. Which also reminds me of where we're at in the pod, and I'll just let you know, or where we're at in our watch, and I'll let you know, some sad things happen. Anyways, This is weird because this rivalry itself has all but cooled down by this point. So it's almost like Kevin Sullivan booking. Like, remember these guys are rivals? Yeah, okay. That being said, given the two wrestlers, it is certainly not a bad match by any stretch. China gets up on the apron to interfere. Marlena grabs her leg and Hunter hits her on accident with a running knee that Goldust has dodged. Goldust then rolls up Hunter for the win, giving it a C+. This will not be a new rivalry thing. We're not going to continue that. Hunter's going to go his own separate way. Goldust is going to go his own separate way. And that's good. So C+, I enjoyed it for what it was.
And Goldust gets cheers in West Virginia, which I thought was kind of wild. Dude is over with the good old boys in West Virginia. So good for him. Good for him. After that, we get a little moment with the Road Warriors, the Legion of Doom, whichever you prefer, Hawk and Animal. And they just say, you know, they're simpatico, bro. They don't have these issues that Shawn and Steve Austin do. And that he thinks that he'll kick, I think he'll kick Shawn's teeth down Austin's throat. I think it was. You know, they like to get anatomical here.
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah.
You got any more you want to add?
No, we just roll right in the next match.
Which brings us to our next match, which is the Legion of Doom, the Road Warriors on the other program, versus Shawn Michaels and Stone Cold Steven Austin. And this match goes 10 minutes, 13 seconds. Tell me.
As much as it affects his promos, being plastered certainly doesn't affect Michaels in the ring. Or if it does, his plastered in the ring is still miles ahead of most sober wrestlers in the ring, which is insane. Earl Hebner gets bumped by Animal when he doesn't realize that Hawk tagged him in. This allows Austin to use the belt on Hawk. HBK covers, but Hawk kicks out, which is good because I thought that was kind of a cheap way to win. The Hearts come down to the ring. HBK confronts them outside of the ring on the ramp, and Austin doesn't like being left alone. So the two start fighting each other outside the ring. This results in a count-out win for Legion of Doom. This is an amusing book around to the kind of, well, how do you have Legion of Doom lose this match? You don't. You have them win without getting the titles, which I thought this was good. No one looks weak in this, and it continues the animosity that these begrudging allies have. So I'm giving it an A. It works, and we're going to be able to see, you know, it's kind of a blow off until the pay-per-view, which is, you know, next Sunday. So $2 a month on our Patreon if you want to hear that.
Whoa! What a salesman. But yeah, I thought Shawn and Austin did some really great storytelling in this match. They worked to, you know, because it's hard. We've got this angle that they're a tag team, but they don't like each other, and so you've got to play it just right. And I think they played it just right. They worked together where they had to, but very clearly are not into it. And I think they did that really, really well. After that, we get Mick Foley part chase. And tell me about it, Joseph. There's a lot going on here.
Yes, there is. I've loved, obviously, part 1s and 2s. Guess what? I love part 3 and 4. We go through Mick Foley's career prior to being a WWF mainstay, focusing on the character of his split personality of Cactus Jack. Foley says Cactus Jack was willing to get down and dirty and sleep in his car and be alone to achieve his goals. Ross tells us that as he grew darker and more dangerous, promoters asked him to tone it down or they couldn't use him. There's actually a lot of truth to this. Eric Bischoff famously fired him, seeing him as a liability to himself and the company, as well as fans at ringside, according to Bischoff. We then see Cactus Jack in death matches, in actual death matches, not WCW death matches, in Japan that Foley describes as his destiny, saying Mrs. Foley's boy is finally home. This is the very first of Mrs. Foley's baby's boys that we will hear. This becomes a running line for him. It's perfect. It's exactly what you need. You're trying to humanize this character, and they're doing a great job. He says those fans didn't line up to spit on him like they do here. They respected him. JR points out Foley's scars. He has a giant scar right here on his arm. It's a pretty famous one. He says Foley responds rather by quoting Shakespeare's Henry V St. Crispin Day speech. He shall strip his sleeves and show his scars, and say these wounds I had at St. Crispin's Day. And the good story shall be told from father to his son. For we shall be remembered, we few, we happy few, brothers. For he who sheds his blood with me today shall be my brother. This is a bastardization of the speech, to be clear. It's much longer, doesn't quite go this way, but it's a sum up, essentially. But the point itself is sound. We, with one quote, see the complexity in Mick Foley. On the surface, he is this feral beast, a monster, something to be scared of. Beneath the surface, he's intelligent, well-read, sad, and lonely. Those last two only make the beast more terrifying. Foley finishes by telling us a story of being on a plane riddled with stitches all over his body and burned skin. He calls himself a constant coach flyer, but on this particular flight, he got bumped up to first class. The woman he sat next to so couldn't bear being near him that she paid twice the money to move back to coach to be away from him. Look, you know where I'm going with this. This is superb, and Mick Foley's a genius. This gets an A+. It's fantastic.
And that leads us into our next match, because it's Mankind versus Savio Vega in the King of the Ring quarterfinals. Of note, the winner of this match faces Jerry Lawler, so he joins Vince and JR on commentary. He hasn't been there really up till this point, and I'm sure he won't get involved in any way. Tell me about this match, Joseph. It's almost 3 minutes even. It's 3:01.
We see the effects of the last 3 weeks of sit-down interviews. Mankind gets cheered by the fans in a stunning turn of events. And you can tell it's stunning because next week, Mankind does something that should get him booed. But the fans are so in love with him by this point, they're sympathetic and they cheer him. He also noticeably is not accompanied by Paul Bearer, which Vince makes sure to point out. Also just a perfect nugget of storytelling that will come into play at the pay-per-view. $2 a month. Subscribe to our Patreon. Jerry the King taunts Mankind, who is knocked down outside the ring. Mankind responds by attacking Jerry. He gets back in the ring and locks in the mandible claw on Savio. Savio drags him to the ropes to Crush, who's on the apron, who swings and misses Mankind and hits Savio instead. Mankind picks up the win, and the crowd cheers him. Savio and Crush begin to fight each other, and that is another storyline that is going to continue at the pay-per-view, $2 a month on our Patreon. Giving this a B, I don't think it's an A-worthy match by any stretch, but it is a B-worthy one. We got multiple storylines. Mankind is over. Nation is potentially over, but in the different version of that term, which I love. And yeah, it's great. It's exactly what I want to be seeing on a weekly television program.
Speaking of things I want to see on a weekly television program, Sable Lap Dance is a King of the Ring inflatable chair. $59.99 plus $11 for shipping and handling. And that leads us to our main. I actually don't want to see that. It weirds me out because I know what Vince is doing.
Yes.
I get it. Wrestling is young men watch wrestling. I get it. Sex sells. But I also have 20/20 hindsight, and I'm like, I know what you all are doing.
Yeah.
Anyways, that leads us to our main event, as promised, Undertaker versus Psycho Sid, 4 minutes, 47 seconds.
Sid very quickly lands a choke slam, which surprised the heck out of me. Taker does not obviously lose, but he hits a tombstone of his own for the win. And then the Nation attack Taker and make sure Sid stays down too. We end up fading to black with the Nation standing tall. I like this in theory, but something about it didn't quite land for me. I kind of thought about it for a bit, and it's maybe the fact the Nation's been a joke their entire existence, and we're supposed to just now see them as a threat. So I'm giving this a C. It's not bad by any stretch, but it's hard for me to this. To be clear, this is the perfect booking going into a pay-per-view. The heels standing tall. It's exactly what you should do. The problem is the heels have always looked like a joke. That's why it's hard for me to get behind it. But it is the right call on what they should have been doing. It's a little bit difficult for me.
King of the Ring Sunday. We've actually got storylines.
Mm-hmm.
It's exciting. Hopefully they'll be tied up. Some will, some maybe not, but at least we get them. And it happens on WWF. Which one was better? WWF.
WWF, hands down, yeah.
Well, agreed. That does it. We've gone way over time. That does it for us. Thank you all for listening to the Monday Night Wars. Like, comment, subscribe. I thought me saying that was what was driving up our YouTube traffic. Apparently Joseph was putting cash money down. But anyways, like, comment, subscribe. Bye, everybody.
Real quick, before we say goodbye, we have a new Patreon subscriber. Speaking of our Patreon, Jeremy Ball. Thanks for joining us, Jeremy. Goodbye, guys.